Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is 2024's COD game. It's also the most recent in order of release in the Black Ops series. It takes place between one game, which is Black Ops 2, since that game is split between two timelines itself with past and future missions, which the latter takes place in current year 2025, and the earliest game in the Black Ops series by name is Black Ops 1, but World at War is still connected to the series, making it the only game in the series that doesn't have the Black Ops name, which means that Black Ops 6 is actually Black Ops 7, while the latest in the series is Black Ops 3, and before that is Black Ops 4, which doesn't even have a campaign, and also that game introduced Warzone, but back then it was called Blackout. But it's the most recent COD game when it comes to the zombie storyline, since it takes place in a different rebooted universe than World at War up until Black Ops 4, with Cold War and Black Ops 6 sharing their storyline between Modern Warfare, which is usually made by Freq, the studio behind the Black Ops games mostly. And all of that is a really long way of me saying that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has Squid Game. Well, what is Black Ops 6 like then? As a returning player where the last game I played was Cold War for 3 hours and before that Infinite for 2000, I actually like a lot of the new stuff. The campaign has begun to do away with a lot of the super linear stuff. Instead of the constant getting into a firefight, walking around, and then getting into another firefight until the mission ends, you're instead dropped into a mission with either optional objectives that reward you for dealing with them, or you can choose to play all cloak and dagger and just go full stealthy. You still end up in firefights regardless, but it's good to know that I can approach these things a bit more differently than just shoot first, ask questions later. I like the characters. Troy is my favorite guy. Felix made me laugh really hard that one time. The dialogue can be a bit snappy at times, and when the set pieces go off, they can always be cool. The campaign gives you a lot of leeway on how to deal with certain stuff. There's this little puzzle with a safe, and long story short, when my friend asked me about it, I found out that the safe puzzle is different for different people. They give you RCXDs, explosive throwing knives, dart traps, and not to mention optional rewards like airstrikes and mortars. You almost kill Yuri Lorenthal. Then they have these missions where you're just set loose to do stuff on your own. One of my faves being under the radar. You're deep in cover and you have to take out enemy defenses. At the start they give you some options like sabotaging helicopter fuel or cutting wires on missiles, but I found out how to make their SAM turrets target themselves and their own helicopters for a twofer. It's the kind of stuff that allows me to be a little more creative and feels like a natural extension to COD games that let you pick your classes before any mission, which coincidentally you can't do in this game, so points off for you, Black Ops 6. That's not to say I like all the new changes. Some things are just unnecessary. The cost to match yourself in the campaign makes it feel more grindier than it needs to be. Armor is just terrible all around. It gets chewed through so fast since Call of Duty hasn't fixed that problem where enemies focus you and your teammates are completely useless. I like some of the open world missions though, like this one during Operation Desert Storm. Granted, it's not like it's anything particularly new in games, I just like to see how Call of Duty handles that kind of stuff going forward, especially with a grander arsenal to deal with your enemies. But then there was this mission. Emergence is easily the best mission in all of Black Ops 6. There's this gas called Cradle that messes up your senses and you have to fight the zombies and these prey-looking alien dudes. You're completely alone throughout and you're hallucinating killing your friends, and it's basically like a Metroidvania where you go back and forth through multiple different parts of the facility and then they just give you a goddamn grapple hook, making this the third Call of Duty game ever where you actively use a grapple hook throughout the mission. But it doesn't help that it copies most of its animation from the first game to do this, Advanced Warfare, and worse still, you never really get to see this thing again, which is all in all why I wanted to make this video. Call of Duty is stagnant and it's not hard to see why. The games, at least the modern ones, have started to blend into one another. I'm not a big fan of this particular argument, but you know the classic one, right? Call of Duty is the same every year, just different weapons, different maps, or some variation thereof. I've never been one to agree with this statement, especially during the era where I mostly played Call of Duty. The community has named this one the futuristic era, but I personally call this little group the experimental age. I started playing Call of Duty during 2012, so my first experience with the franchise was Black Ops 2. When I was a kid playing this, I was blown away by the storytelling, like 6 multiplayer maps, and zombies. One of the very first experiences with zombies was when I hopped on farm for the first time with my older brother and his friend from school. I remember going down 19 times, my brother went down 16 times, and his friend went down 33 times, but this was the kind of stuff I love. It was just so good. And in the multiplayer, you had dolphin diving, which was super funny. If you killed a guy in midair, he would drop like a stone and guy's head would go eat, eat, eat. That was super funny back in the day, I'm telling you. And with all that in mind, I should say this, Call of Duty Ghosts didn't have the reputation that Black Ops 2 did, and it actually began this little experimental age. You had the introduction of extinction, some destructible environments, a few dynamic maps, leading in cover, character customization through progression, which has now been replaced by operator skins, so now when a dude kills me, his body is glowing or something, and sometimes they say something funny. This was also the first year that I actually heard the argument for the first time. Nobody was talking like this for Black Ops 2, and Ghosts, looking back on it, was an incredible game. If you ignore the multiplayer. It's good to know some things never change. Just like in 2013, I'm still stepping on IED mines and people with IMSs around every godforsaken corner, all the while being one shot with people with M27 IARs with thermal hybrid scopes and head glitching spots, further amped by the leading and cover mechanic. Also, cheats. Isn't that fun? Yeah, don't play this shit. This is like the worst in COD, even when it came out, I'm not gonna lie. The campaign though was super fun. First you're running around modern day California, then you're on the beaches of Normandy, they got you destroying an oil rig, in another one you're hanging off the side of a building, then you're swimming in the ocean. Extinction was an incredible alternative to zombies, a cool progression system, fun little class mechanics and tools to bring with you, its own little interesting story and prestige system. It was great. Zombies is pretty cool though. You could save and quit when you need to take a break. They got a third person mode, you can change your equipment on the fly, and the world feels so different. It's a military response to the undead that feels well coordinated. Leveling up your weapons make me want to uninstall, the new weapon types make me want to uninstall. Armor is actually useful here, you can upgrade perks, you do a funny ragdoll when you die, and
oh god, he stole my ball.
You get to become a big guy with a key blast cannon, so that's cool. My favorite perk is melee Mashamaha, but I still like to see how this kind of zombies gets better over time. I remember in the lead up to release, they had these posts going around where they talked about returning to classic prestige and classic round-based zombies, which I get why they would do that, but to me it felt like experimentation was being shot down. Then they had this thing called Omni movement. When I'm playing zombies, I'm not boxed in just because I decided to go down a staircase. Tactical sprint is pretty neat. The modern movement is way more fun to play around with, especially since they lost all those annoying invisible walls every other COD game would have had. But we had actual Omni movement 10 years ago. This is the loudest COD game ever, but also the one that really kind of put experimentation in the forefront. Advanced Warfare took a lot of notes from Ghosts. No destructible environments or extinction, I'm afraid, but this game chased mostly one thing: movement. No other COD game played like the vertical goof hour that was Advanced Warfare. Double jumping, sliding, dashing, right, left, back, and forth. You got to ground slam into a dude's forehead? That was the kind of stuff I lived for, man. Advanced Warfare was the most unique COD game ever, owing to its movement being so simple and never replicated in any COD game before or after. Outside of that, it's also the first COD game to add weapon variants, for better or for worse, albeit you had to get them from supply drops.
Elite.
I still haven't gotten the Campfire Breakneck. It was also the first COD game to my knowledge to add killstreak add-ons, special abilities like speed boost, hovering, and invisibility. It was the only COD game in history to let you use both a grapple hook in the campaign and the multiplayer. But nobody talks about that. I guess it was just too futuristic. It took a few things from Ghosts, like the character customization, the dynamic map events, which were kind of funny. It had its own exo zombies, which was just insanity. They would infect you, explode, disable your exosuit, all that cool stuff. Then in survival mode was pretty fun as well. Enemies would pull up in the XS1 mixer, others would just be straight invisible. Then every once in a while you got to play basketball. While uplink in Call of Duty was pretty fun. You toss the ball to somebody so they'd lose their weapons, and then you scope them, and then you picked up the ball and just dunk it. They also had this really cool thing in survival where you'd progress on the maps until on Riot you were fighting zombies, which would link back to the zombies game mode, which had one of my favorite guys from the campaign, but he died, so I was sad to see it. But now the game would feel more connected as a whole. So maybe some people who think this game is forgettable is right. I guess it was just too futuristic. Black Ops 3 lost a lot of stuff, but also had a lot of new stuff as well. Dynamic maps downgraded into different times of day and different times of year. The customization system was mostly locked behind supply drops. Kill streaks lost their extra parts, and this game introduced COD points. So, Points off to you, BO3, but movement became more fluid, so instead of binary movement options, you could wall run, slide, bunny hop, and you had this little thrust jump that you can either tap out or hold on to. They also added swimming, so now gamers could take a bath after a long day of camping in the same fucking spot. Exo abilities became specialists that now had two abilities. One was offensive, the other defensive. Weapons could have up to 6 attachments now. You could have your own gun camo, select the music you wanted to listen to, so this is like the 5th game I've ever played that lets you just do that. The campaign was the funnest gameplay wise since they added these cores to let you hack into stuff like robots or kill everyone in a room by making them puke or set a guy on fire. It's also the second COD game to have a multiplayer campaign. It came with its own customization. You know, you got to pick either a tan dude or a white dude. They had Nightmares, which was the campaign but with zombies, but also a woman with a buzz cut in that one. They also added the worst difficulty in COD history, which was just vet mode, but now you actually got one shot despite wearing future armor. Campaign was interesting though. I think the best way to describe it was cyber AIDS. Think about it. Some people were doing an experiment, their minds melted in the code, you touch the code and now you're infected. It's weird, man. Also, the train go boom.
Outcome, train go boom.
I like that one. They added this thing called tactical mode, which was kind of cool during gameplay. This lets you spot danger zones and avoid them. Free run mode was added to practice the new movement. They re-added Dead Ops Arcade. My friend calls this one Lil Zombies. Perma perks from Black Ops 2 got turned into gobblegums. You could customize your guns going into a match. The maps were kind of fun. And the Treyarch Zombie storyline ended until it didn't. So all in all, I enjoyed this game a ton, but I think most people were getting tired of it being just a bit too futuristic. The Final Frontier. This is the most futuristic COD game to date. It's also one of the most hated. I remember when I pre-ordered this game, the person who got it for me said that she heard from her friend that this game was bad and nobody played it, despite the fact that she didn't play games and her friend didn't either. Quick reminder, this was a pre-order, being one of the most disliked videos on all of YouTube. About 4 or 5 years later is when people actually went back to play the damn thing. It's the reason why you'll see thumbnails like, was it our fault? Was the game actually good? Was Infinite Warfare really that bad? But, you know gamers, unless it's objectively obvious after release, their takes on games that haven't been released have never really been good. Some people have to still justify their dislike, like how Black Ops 3's multiplayer is better than Infinite Warfare, or the fact that MWR is tied to Infinite, which is a good argument against Activision. Infinite, not so much. People have tricked themselves into believing that the same company that hasn't yet removed keyboard and mouse and console-only multiplayer, and the incredibly correctly criticized skill-based matchmaking, thought they had enough foresight in a 3-year development cycle that had no implications of failure, that the game was going to have a bad reputation, so they put a remaster alongside it. So let's talk to campaign. Everybody agrees it's in the conversation for the best of the series. The missions are instantly iconic. Getting more guns and getting stronger requires you to play fun side quests. You can grapple hook a guy in 0G and kill him in like 10 different ways. Different enemies that require actual planning to beat. The best dialogue.
Who contacted you?
Lieutenant Salter. She asked the Admiral for a retrieval team. Under the circumstances, he deemed the recovery too risky.
Rains didn't authorize the rescue.
War has no friends, Reyes. Perhaps my motivations were selfish, but I have no intention of fighting out here alone. I tasked a pilot and 2 spotters, and we set out to your last known location.
How did you account for radial velocity?
Gravitational drag and something we've been lacking. Luck. We had to pry Ethan's arms open. They'd frozen around you. Protecting his captain to the end. Dauntless valor, Ethan.
Boundless terror, Captain.
You are a humble one.
Gorgeous cutscenes with seamless transitions.
In position. We should get you out there. Captain Farron.
Astonishing set pieces, and a wonderful message of duty and sacrifice.
You're our leader, sir. Not our savior.
I hold myself accountable, Chief.
As you should. You aborted the mission. Captain. He saved his ship and crew, Chief. And that's noble, but the shipyard remains intact. Look, the strength of the pack is in all the wolves, Captain. All in, no matter the cost. They were ready. Now, if you don't have the will to make that kind of choice, then like me, you have no place being in command.
I couldn't ram my own ship. I would have killed them.
They came to win. This doesn't look like victory.
This is also one of the only COD games that actually made people cry, because at the end of the game where everybody dies, they take it a step further and let you play each character's last message to their family and friends, and it really makes you think about the people who they were before all this. I don't need to tell you that Infinite Warfare's campaign is excellent. Go play it. What I have to tell you about is difficulty. In every other COD game before Infinite, the difficulty was basic, easy, normal, hard, and annoying. But they took it a step further. If you completed the game on annoying, you got a better difficulty. Specialist difficulty. I don't see anybody talking about this in a big way, so let me be the first to point this out to you. For one, you can't heal. Regeneration has been removed and taking damage is serious. First off, each part of your body when receiving damage will result in various debuffs. If you got hit in the left arm, you'll lose the ability to aim or melee or use grenades. If you get hit in the right arm, your gun starts swaying around, messing up your aim further. Take leg damage and say hello to reduced movement. Your gun can get shot out your hand, resulting in a quick time event, and if you fail it, your gun drops and you gotta pick it back up. Then you have a helmet. You're gonna love this one. Get shot in the head and your visor will crack. Take enough damage, it will straight up shatter. And if you just so happen to take a headshot, you die. Now this might all sound quite challenging, and it is, but don't worry, you can still grab yourself a nano shot, a healing stimulant that will fix all bodily problems. But they're in limited quantity, and so is your helmets. You'll still find some every checkpoint or so. I'd love to talk about this game's story, but I really can't. Not in a video like this, maybe in a future video. But one of my favorite missions is when you're on an asteroid hurling toward the sun, and it has a daylight cycle. During the day, the sun shines and you burn, and your enemies, they're at your throat. At night, it's quite the opposite, so use that time to take advantage. Okay, before I tell you about all the fun features or lack thereof, I really want to see what people think about Infinite Warfare's multiplayer. So let's look at this video.
Create a class is overloaded with mechanics. It's a pick 10 system, which you'd think would be good enough, but then you got gun perks and a combat rig with extra perks called traits. You got this payload super weapon in addition to managing salvage and literally hundreds of different prototype weapons with all unique base traits that you have to try and memorize. What is this, an MMORPG?
Wow, this is one of the worst takes I've ever seen. So let's look at his complaints so far. He says the CAC system is overloaded with mechanics, but acknowledges that it's a pick 10 system. And there is so much wrong with this take. I think he's either calling the specialists intrusive in the UI, or he doesn't like specialists. Because he didn't elaborate in his Black Ops 3 video, saying that they were added for better or for worse and then comparing them to Halo. UI-wise, specialists are on top in the CAC screen, and they do not intermingle with your loadout because unlike in Black Ops 3, you can switch specialists on the fly, making it convenient. Salvage has not and never has been on the CAC screen, and it doesn't disappear or go down or anything, so it's not like you really need to manage it. This is a lie. I'm gonna tackle these last 2 points as one. Traits for specialists or gun perks. These are all passives, or a few actives that disappear in the gameplay. On the spec side, you can expect extra maneuverability, awareness, or perks that you would have unlocked anyway. It's nothing super significant. Gun perks work like attachments, like extended mags or laser sight, with a few requiring you to do specific things that you'd be doing anyway. Examples include getting headshots, or killing while in various movement modes. The only unique ones are stacked onto endguns, which, once again, are pretty easy to understand and disappear into gameplay. That's why they're called passives. You see, this moron highlighted the best weapon to make my point: greatly reduce spread while jumping and sliding, in a game where you're constantly jumping and sliding. Then he lies again, insinuating that all these weapons are unlocked only through supply drops, which is wrong because you unlock most weapons through mission teams or crafting. I'm gonna talk about the other stuff in a minute, but I want to see how he messes up movement.
So when you hear the term advanced movement, you think, oh, this is meant to give me more freedom and opportunities in an FPS setting. The appeal is, you can get creative with this. You won't be stuck to whatever lanes and paths the developers create. And that's what you get in Titanfall 2.
I like Titanfall 2, and I know he's not saying this, but Titanfall 2 movement is so funny to me. This is easily one of the best arguments ever, if you don't think about it for more than 2 seconds. For one, if COD had Titanfall movement, then you'd quickly see the entire game change around it. Guns, grenades, perks, everything. And if I recall, the last time the community asked for innovation, it wasn't received quite well, was it? But yeah, let's ignore that idea, for a moment at least, and look at the current COD, Black Ops 6. This game has skill-based matchmaking, a system that everyone hates because it puts you in lobbies based on prior match performance rather than your overall skill, making the game way more sweatier than it needs to be, and thus way less fun since you're fighting people you really shouldn't be. In other COD games, you would bounce around from doing really good to really bad before eventually evening out. Here you face off against the greatest sweats in existence, and that's with the boots on the ground gameplay. So imagine playing with Titanfall movement, a system so deceptively simple that quickly evolves into highly complex movement mechanics. It's already a well-known fact that Titanfall has less of a skill gap and more of a vast ocean. Sure, it's imperfect, but these games and their movements were probably the best option, considering that COD has always been, despite its cost, an accessible shooter, where the skill ceiling wasn't so high that you still couldn't kill the biggest sweats around. But yeah, let's have Titanfall movement. I'm sure people who actively go out of their way to cheat or make Smurf accounts won't make the game any worse. And I'm 100% sure the fanbase would agree, it would certainly still feel like COD.
The maps are littered with so many kill barriers and invisible walls, a mime would have a mental breakdown trying to play this. And the very second you try to get creative, bad for racism. Let's try wall running over here. Alright, so far so good. Nope, don't want to go down. Nope, okay, that didn't work. Alright, can I go up here? Hell no. Well, why does it look like I can? Jump on the building. Come on. Get up there. No, don't wall run. Get up there. Ugh. How about this catwalk? Can't possibly have an invisible barrier there. You son of a... What about over here? No, of course not. Of course that's a kill barrier. You can't even jump on the ledge, dude. What? All right, finally I found something I can wall run on. No! What? This area. Why is there a kill barrier here? Why didn't you cover this up? I can't even jump over this? Are you serious? All right, this giant truck looks promising. I can't jump on the truck? I don't care if I...
He's kind of right, but also kind of wrong. And in terms of just wall running for both games, some areas are inconsistent, some areas knock you down. Both games have a lot of invisible walls, a fair amount of them being in areas that don't make much sense. Both games could have done better with a Dying Light 2, Severed Steel, or Sunset Overdrive approach to map design, where each piece of the environment is designed to facilitate movement. Power positions like the ones he's trying to get on here are in bad spots, because they're on one side of the map and the other side doesn't have much defense against it. AW understood this reasoning by making power positions either on equal sides of the map or giving players tools to close the distance. They did this by removing cover or making them open so you couldn't camp up there. This directly encourages movement. One could argue that aside from sniper posts, you shouldn't have power positions or at least make them weaker in these games so as not to encourage camping. Something he's clearly against. I mean, just look at all the camping spots on the borders of the map he's trying to get to. Then this jackass sees a clearly marked kill barrier and is trying to jump out of it. It is surprised when he's about to die. I mean, look at this one. Where did you think you were gonna go there, buddy? Now, I know this might be hard to accept, but Modern Warfare 2, you know his #1 Blaze Fest, also had map borders. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a certified video game journalist take, and honestly, you should be embarrassed. The maps let you get creative in many different ways, although it will be a bit of a battle from time to time to change movement, especially on rocky maps. And by rocky maps, I really only mean grounded. It's the only map in Infinite Warfare with a single-digit number of wall running opportunities. And if we're just counting by that one factor, that makes it the worst map in the game. Every other map does not have this issue. I wonder how many lies that is. I've lost count. Let's talk about the multiplayer, honestly this time. Features-wise, character customization is pretty much on par. They had a version of game modes without movement if you really were allergic to fun like that, no custom camos, and you can't select the music you wanted to listen to. Leaning makes a return. Specialists came back stronger than ever, now with 3 abilities and 3 traits assigned to each one. They also added gestures. These were 100% better than weapon inspection. You could play rock, paper, scissors with your buddies, roleplay as a tactical guy, but you could also play with little toys, flip coins, roast marshmallows, and blow horns. Then they had gesture warfare, free-for-all type game mode where you gesture at someone and then they'd blow up. This was the funniest thing. You would pretend to hit someone with a little toy robot and then they just turn into a pile of blood. This was easily the goofiest, funniest thing in the game. No contest. In fact, gesture warfare started out as like a random event that would happen every once in a while. Now it's just a mainstay in the game because it was just that much fun. Killstreak attachments have returned, just not as well as an AW, same as weapon variants, but these are actually good this time around. You don't need to open supply drops to get a gun anymore. Salvage lets you craft the weapon you want. Granted, it's not every weapon, just these 4 and various versions of certain guns. But the ones you make are almost always better than or equal to their supply drop exclusives. Speaking of, Infinite Warfare leveled up the goof factor in a ton of weapons. Some get fundamental changes like perks and attachments like underbarrel shotguns, different fire mode types, the Ripper SMG lifted from COD Ghosts, and not all of them are tied to weapon variation either. Some guns are just built like this. They got a sniper that turns into a shotty, a sniper that turns into an AR, weapons that are better when you hip fire. Shotguns had this one sight where all of the pellets would lock onto one person so you could one-shot them. The Ripper switches between SMG and AR. It also has a variant where if you shoot a dude in the nuts it does more damage, an AR that turns into twin machine pistols, a railgun that gives you, an AR that turns into a melee weapon, the Venom X from Ghosts. They got this axe you can throw and nunchucks where if you hit a guy his body goes flying 1,000,000 feet, and I didn't get the katana, but if you kill somebody with it, they explode. And a literal minigun. There's no change there, it's just a legit minigun. All of that doesn't take into account the insanity that was the specialist stuff. BO3 had some basic stuff like grenade launchers, bows, revolvers, and a flamethrower. What did Infinite have? Oh, I don't know, how about a pistol that deatomizes you, a laser that chains around, a sniper that locks on the people and shoots bolts to them that stick them to walls. That happens sometimes if you melee them. The spinning tri-barrel gun that shoots ricocheting rubber bullets, a riot shield that lets you crash into people, dimension hopping, warp travel, you turn into a robot dog, and guess what? They just had a goddamn black hole rocket launcher. Infinite straight up just put wonder weapons in the multiplayer. Now, I know some people have this honest belief that AoE lethals and tacticals in Black Ops 3 are rendered ineffective because people jump over the AoE lethals and tacticals. So what does Infinite Warfare have? Cluster bombs, rocket stickies, grenades that explode into plasma, spider drones that can stick to you and blow you up, linear flying drones that can be detonated on a whim, black hole projectors, bubble shields, healing simulants, cold mines, and throwing knives that explode on contact. This is also the COD game that introduced using grenades and a gun at the same time. Let's talk weapons. These are split into two categories, energy and ballistic. Ballistic weapons are your typical bullet firing guns. Energy weapons have a few changes. They shoot lasers that ricochet off their environment instead of piercing. They also have ammo printing capabilities, so your reserves will move into your main clip, but you can still reload. You know the scavenger perk, right? Kill a guy and get some ammo back? Well, in most COD games, you have to progress to about level 30 or more to unlock it. And trust me, it sucks running out of ammo and having to pick up somebody else's gun just to keep my streak going. But if you grab this one attachment called Fusion Mag, it lets you regenerate all the ammo in the clip without wasting ammo in reserve. So infinite ammo as long as you take breaks between combat, giving guns way more utility than you'd have in any other game. Map-wise, the games are pretty on par with one another, sticking to the 3-lane circular map philosophy, and as much as I'd like to see it change, I won't really complain too much. I can do without some camp-centric ones, and only BO3 lets you swim in water, but I'll give it to Infinite, mostly for the absurd environments alone. They got you running around on Mars and Europa, a mining asteroid with the sun in the sky, a 1950s town, but it's on a halo ring, a space station or two, a ridge battle on Titan, Gotham, Venice, and in this one DLC map, you're on a junkyard on the moon, and they let you stand on this magnet and scope people. Bro, they got you fighting on a ship orbiting a black hole. You can't get much cooler than that. Zombies was the ultimate goof hour. Let me tell you, they got this little boss battle mode. Doing the Easter egg gives you more characters to play as. I never completed any, sorry. Extinction made a return. Challenge Shuffle had you literally kung-fuing zombies to death like you were Bruce Lee. Zombies in Spaceland is easily the most interactive and therefore funnest COD map in history. Sometimes you're in black and white. When you die, you play games in an arcade. Donating to doors was added. Fate and Fortune cards are 1,000% better than gobble guns because you can actually pick what you wanted to on the run. You fought a big-ass crab one day, had a sausage fight the next, and later that afternoon you're literally killing Satan. They had breakdancing zombies, aliens, and mini-games you can play in arcades, and in this one, they just got you on drugs. Zombies in Infinite was beyond fun, you cannot tell me otherwise. Every COD game I played as a kid, back to back to back to back, was a completely different experience. These games, to me, felt like COD was really going somewhere. A few things followed through the games, but I believe that I got to experience the best the series had to offer. Yeah, I went that far. Debate me in the comments if you want. Many of these games had some of the most stupid, outrageous, fun things that are today looked down upon by old, decrepit video game journalists who can't comprehend basic game logic. This was Call of Duty's experimental era, where games were imperfectly perfect and where interactability and fun and practicality were front and center. Some of the best parts of these COD games have been bastardized into paywalls, not to mention the constant removal of features like offline play, split screen, and ruthless pandering to the most sweaty playstyles that completely ruin matchmaking with its systems encouraging anti-fun and anti-skill. What I'm trying to say is, I like Black Ops 6. It feels different. It's not changing much, but it is changing. It sucks knowing that most COD games in the modern era from 2019 upward kind of bleed into each other. So much so they all live in the same place that somehow tricked everyone into thinking that BO6 was 8 trillion terabytes. Look, I know a lot of people blame the CEOs for COD's current woes, but the COD community could never see the forest for the trees. And not to come off as pretentious or anything, but when you complain about a game's objectively good movement or its really interesting environments for some reason, then you're gonna have the dumbest people on the planet trying to give you small actual reasons to hate something you never liked in the first place. And you're gonna see the good parts of that game disappear with the parts you don't like. It's the reason I stopped playing Call of Duty in the first place. I especially feel bad for the devs. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Add some cool stuff and people will focus on their hate on the one big thing they dislike, so you gotta scrap it. No experimentation, no constructive criticism, just outspoken, dishonest, unrelenting anger. Keep the current formula and all of a sudden it's boring and repetitive, so I stopped playing. This series is 21 years old with a rich, deep, fruitful history, and it's absolutely shameful to see it bell curve itself. I don't care if we get another futuristic COD game. I just want something that is fun. That's all I want. Something over the top and goofy, but also serious and profound. And the experimental era really nailed that in.